I want to introduce Sylvia Starr to you. She works at the Family Crisis Center and Counseling Center. And she's going to talk to us. She's our first speaker for alcohol and drugs. So why don't we, it doesn't have to be a journal. And yeah, I want you to do a brief journal entry on this, so you might want to take some notes, because we're videotaping it, and that way those who aren't here will have that to do as well. So we can hold them accountable for not being here.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, they get the information that way. So that's why we're here. And I'll let her tell you about herself.
Okay. Well, like you said, my name is Sylvia Starr. I work at Family Crisis and Counseling. I've been there about 7 years. I am a mother of 4, a grandmother of soon to be 9. My youngest daughter is going to deliver in January, so no, December. So anyway, I also have decided late in life to go back and change my career and change my path. So I'm going to Rogers State in the psychology program there. So sort of looking at this program, my niece is in the same program, and she's transferring to OWU next semester, and she keeps trying to talk me into it. So we'll see, we'll see. So I had my social problems class last, I sort of was grandfathered into this work, meaning that back in the day you didn't have to necessarily have a bachelor's to, go out and do, groups and work with kids. And so that should tell you that I've been out doing that before, the orange juice was invented. I don't know. I've been out there for a while. So in order for me to do what I want to do, I had to go back and get a degree. I do have a degree in early childhood. I'm working with little bitty ones, but this is my retirement plan. My retirement plan is to get my degree and do some counseling, and I can do that till I'm 90. I can be sitting around in little old folks' home counseling little old folks. So that's sort of what I've decided to do. But one of the reasons I got into actually working with people that have issues with drugs and alcohol is because I have lived with one. Actually, let's back up just a little more. Drugs and alcohol hit my home through my first child. He was much older than the rest of them. He's 30 now. And he has bipolar. And he learned real early in life, like 12, from a friend at his house that if he smoked weed, that it really made him feel better. He was an undiagnosed person with bipolar until he was 21. I didn't have any clue what was going on in his life. 30 years ago, I don't think they weren't quite sure what was going on with him, but he did learn that if he smoked weed, he felt better, and so that is what's called self-medication. And unbeknownst to us, he became a regular user. How that trickles down through a family, little background for our family, my children's dad was a preacher, and we had a good home. We provided, we were pretty strict, you couldn't be out after this time, couldn't be on the phones. We had the right rules, but I had no education about what drugs and alcohol was, what it looked like when it was in our home. And so we weren't really looking for that. Our kids aren't going to do that, and certainly not at 11 years old, And so what happened is as my children grew up, of course, you hear that marijuana is a gateway drug. You hear that all the time. And kids today will argue this to the end with me as I'm out. But that's the gateway drug that came into our home. It was introduced to the next child, who introduced it to the next child, who introduced it to the next child. I have 4. And it had a different effect on every child in my home that used marijuana. So we're going to talk about one of them. And this is my daughter Jordan. And she is 24 at this time. She went to Bartlesville schools, and she has given me permission to share her story. This is the latest picture we have of her. She is serving a 30-year sentence in prison, but she only has 8 years to spend in only. She got a 30-year sentence for armed robbery. And I'm going to tell you her story. She's on her, when you get charged with a crime, there is two different, and I had to be educated on all this through this process, there's two different types of time that you can serve. One is violent, and one is non-violent. And if you serve a violent crime, you're going to have to serve 85% of what the judge tells you you have to serve in prison. If it is a non-violent crime, you have to serve 35%. So she was sentenced to 30 years, 8 in, 22 is what they call on paper. And a lot of this is prison lingo, and that's the only lingo I know because that's who I talk to, is her. On paper means, what is it? When you come out on, what is that?
Probation.
Probation, there you go. See, I'm still like, well, I don't know this. So when she gets out, she will be on probation parole for 20 years. She will be my age before this goes away. This is the latest picture of her that she got to take for Christmas and send to us. So this is how she started out. Jordan Chelsea Sophie is her name. And she loved bugs. She loved science. She went to science camp every year. She was a straight A student. Couldn't get her out of dresses. She always liked makeup real early. She was just sort of your normal child, you know, if there is a normal child. After 4, I'm thinking, I don't know what's normal. So anyway, of all 4 of my children, if I had to look back on it, I would have said she's going to be my most successful because she loved school. She was a rule, you know, she stuck strictly by the rules. She was a black and white person. If you know, her teacher told her that she needed to take her backpack here and don't talk to here, she did everything that the teacher had asked. But our struggle with Jordan began early. She began to steal in 6th grade. They were Beanie Babies from the teacher, but that was still stealing in our household. Later that year, she was arrested for having marijuana in her possession, 6th grade, Madison Middle School. Something pretty serious, but when we sat down to talk to her, it was, Mom, somebody said that if you put it on your food, you could get high. So basically, a group of girls sprinkled it on their food and ate it at lunch. Okay, to me, that, you know, that was a red flag, but as a mom, I'm like, oh, she knows nothing. But it was that behavior. She began taking our car at 13, running around with a much older crowd, and at that time, we had her seen by a child psychologist here in town who told us that if she ever gets on the roller coaster, that she will ride it to the end. Okay, telling a mom of a 11, 12-year-old that, I wasn't quite sure what she meant by that. Wasn't quite sure, what does she mean? And then, you know, when she would do good and say, okay, Mom, I promise I'll never do it again, I'm thinking, whoo, we missed the roller coaster. But not so much. These are Jordan's words. During my 8th grade year, I met and began to date a guy much older than me. He was in 11th grade, 8, 9, 10, 11, yeah, they're 3 years old. I thought I was in love with him and would not listen to my parents. Things went well through the year, but I still continued my partying life. I hid my smoking habit from him and my family, but drank while I was with him. Sort of a background on this young man. They had hung out since she was in 6th grade and he was in 8th grade. And so now she's in 8th grade and he's, you know, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th grade. They were best friends. They did everything together. He was just some little guy from down the street to me, you know, and when he came to us and said, you know, can I start picking up Jordan and taking her to school? We had no idea they were dating. Looking back, it was there, but, you know, he had just been around our house. So, you know, he was like a son to us. But this was him. So the plot thickens. Beginning her 9th grade year, they planned to have a baby. To everyone's surprise but them, really. She became pregnant and quit everything. She quit smoking, she quit drinking, she quit the freshman basketball team. She had prepared for the life that she was going to bring into the world. So here's her and Marcus. My son was born July 20th, 2006. I was only 15 years old. I broke the hearts of many people, especially my family, but I was in love with this boy and I would have given up everything for him. So far we haven't talked a lot about substance abuse, but it does come into this in a minute. He has crazy hair. I was a child trying to raise a child, but this is something we both wanted and planned. Within months of my son's birth, of course he was only 18, so what do you think? You know, she turned 16 about the time he turned 18, and he was gone. He had a life to live, you know, so we were raising a child on our, you know, on our own, him and her. These are pictures of me and her sister. The night she got the text from him saying, okay, I'm not coming back, that's when she began to use again, go back to the same behavior. She no longer viewed marijuana as a drug, gateway drug right there. So she started popping pills to gain a further high. Her addiction caused her to act and do things that she never thought she would do. Not only was she a drug addict, but she was an alcoholic as well. She began cutting herself. I don't know why, but it eased the pain. When my son went back to his dad's, because they had joint custody where she'd keep him a week and we would keep him a week. And during the weeks that he was at our house, she was the model mother. He had a bedtime. I mean, I got in trouble for not putting him to bed at a certain time. I mean, he had a schedule. She was the model mother. But the minute he walked out the door to see his dad, she disappeared, and we wouldn't know where she was at. And you have to remember, she was telling me this story from prison. I didn't get the story till she got to prison, and a visit, she began to tell me their story, and so I asked her to write it down so that I could share. So when my son went to his dad's, that's when the real party began. She smoked ice, snorted coke, popped pills, and drank all day. Anything I could get my hands on. I ended up in the hospital many times because of binges. My weight went from 165 to 95. As a mom, I never knew she was in the hospital. Once you have a baby, you are what's called medically emancipated. The hospital does not have to call your parents if you show up to the hospital. So I had no idea she was at the emergency room. But kid you not, shortly after she was arrested, I got all the medical bills, and I had to pay for them. So she would go out and use until she about overdosed, show up at the emergency room, they would help her out, send her home, unbeknownst to me and her father. And just another part of how substance abuse has a lasting effect on parents is I just got those medical bills paid off, because I had to do them myself, just. There's some, you know, there's some underlying issues that we need to talk about when she gets out. So, but this is part of being in a home with somebody that has an addiction. So she went on to work at a fast food place. You have to realize her baby's daddy had moved on. He has a new interest now. They actually are having their own child. She is beginning to use it was not, you couldn't even hide it now. She was incoherent most of the times that she was at my house. We had a lot of give and take where we were doing the parenting of Marcus then, she couldn't wait until he left, you know, like she was. It had gotten progressively worse. It was to the point where I had kicked her out, kept Marcus, and said, this is what we're going to do. The one thing that we didn't see coming is that she would meet somebody at this place where she worked, and he actually, when I first met him, thought he was our saving grace. I really did, because as a praying mother, I would pray, bring somebody into life, help me deal with this. And it's funny because what you pray and what you think is going to happen, God has different plans. And so, and I believe that all this had to do with a plan of saving my daughter's life, and that was the plan of saving her life and keeping her on this earth. And so anyway, we thought Jesse was everything that we had prayed for, and what we found out later, that was a whole big farce that he was putting out for us, because he had actually just got out of juvenile prison in Arizona, and he was there from the time he was 14 for attempted murder. And it wound, this is the last picture that was taken of her and Marcus before she went to prison. She had turned 18 in October, and the crime that she committed was that she and Jesse and this other young man committed was in December. So she had only been 18 2 months. And what had happened is, to gain more money for drugs, they decided to rob an elderly home in Miami, Oklahoma. And the boys, when they pulled up, they pulled into like a cul-de-sac that had 2 entrances, and the guys got out. At this point in her story, she said she refused to get out. She wasn't going to go in the home. There was no gun. They were just going to go in. The house looked empty. They knocked on the door. They were going to go in, steal some stuff, and come out. And unfortunately for the people that own the home, they came home at the time that the guys were in. They walked by, seen Jordan sitting in the car, asked her what was going on. She was like, I don't know, our cars broke down. They went into the home and encountered the 2 young men. The unfortunate part of all this is that he had found a gun when he was in the home. So it went from just a robbery to an armed robbery, because he had a gun. He pulled the gun on them to get out of the home, came and pointed the gun at my daughter and said, drive. And the whole time these are things that we've found out throughout the year, that she's been in prison throughout the years. He kept telling her, just pull over, I'll kill you, I'll kill myself, I'm not going back to prison. And the more he told her that, the faster she drove. And how she believed him is because she had ligature marks that night when she was captured by the police officer on her neck, to where he had already tried to strangle her 2 weeks before. He had been up at work threatening to kill her several times, so unbeknownst to us, we didn't know. My dad, her dad and I. So the only thing she could think of is, the faster I drove, he's not going to kill me if I'm driving fast, because if he kills me, then we're going to both, So they ended up getting their car, those little strips taken out. They were in high pursuit of the police officers were in high pursuit of her. And they got strips put out. They shot at the car. By the time that she had wrecked into a center medium, there was no tires on the side of her car. And we don't, we're sitting at home, we have Marcus, we think she's at work, we have no idea that this is going on. All I know is that she didn't show up that night, but that wasn't abnormal. I mean, there was times that she just didn't show up, and we kept Marcus, we put her into bed. So it wasn't until about 5 o'clock the next day that we found out that they had been arrested for an armed robbery, and that she was facing pretty serious time. At that point, she had that stand by your man attitude, so she took the fall for all of it. And she's learned since then that wasn't the attitude to have, but you have to realize addiction, she was not only addicted to substance abuse, but she was also addicted to the domestic violence, the whole criminal attitude. She was addicted to the lifestyle. She has told us since she went to prison that she thought it would be cool to go to prison. You know, she's 18 years old making grown-up decisions with alcohol and drugs affecting her decision-making processes. So here's Marcus when he was 2. Marcus is now 7. He just turned 7. So it's been, or is he 6? The reason I don't know is I haven't been able to see him but about 5 times since he has been removed. His dad moved to Florida. Let me make sure before I go on. No, I need to show you this next picture. This is a picture of what my daughter looked like the night she was arrested. It's a little different from the picture of my little sweet little thing in the little pictures, isn't it? It's a little different. She's a number now, 596795. You can look her up, DOC. There she is. I went to pull up some other pictures of her on the DOC last night, and I thought, oh, I'm not even taking those. Since then, she has lots of prison tattoos, okay? But I'm going to tell you some good things. I'm setting, how much time do I have?
Till 11:50. 10:50, I mean.
Oh, I was like,
10 to 11.
11:50, I can't talk that long. Okay, so she spent her graduation night in jail. She actually hadn't graduated. All her class graduated. She was in jail. And she's about to turn 24 in prison. These are her words. These were her words about 3 years ago. Life is too short to spend behind walls waiting. It's a constant struggle in here. You can never show weakness. The women will take everything from you. You have to be hard in here. This is the longest I've remained sober. I'm proud of myself. I didn't think that I could live without some kind of drug in me. I have been forced to learn how to handle each problem that may come my way. I am bettering myself as a person and building relationships with my family. I hate that I had to come this far to realize my faults and that life is so much more than partying your life away. Prison has taught me a lot, but I still go back to the same wish. I wish I would have taken the help from my family that offered it to me. I hurt my son, I hurt my family, I hurt myself. Big words to tell. So this is her before, her in. But I want to tell you a little bit more of the story because, you know, it has been several years that she's been in. She just graduated with her associates. She's worked very hard. She has researched what kind of career that she can have because when she gets out, she'll have 4 felonies. She'll be 24. When she gets out, we have about 18 months before she comes home. And the closer that 18 months, because I started sharing this story shortly after she went in, and now I'm sharing this story. I haven't, let me go on and then I'll tell you that. So she's having to figure out what she's going to do when she gets out because she knows that she has to be a mom. To tell you a little of Marcus's story and how substance abuse not only affects the person but the father and him moved to Florida, and they had lived in Florida for about 2 years. In August of last year, they were in a car accident, and the father was killed in this accident. And Marcus, her son, is now paralyzed from the accident from the neck down. I haven't really talked about it publicly, so sorry, but I did get to go up there. They did let me in. I did get to see him. But, you know, he doesn't know who we are. We fought for custody of him. My daughter and I actually have custody of him here. But the Florida state decided that he wasn't medically stable enough to put him on an airplane and bring him back to Oklahoma. It's been a year. That happened a year ago. He's getting stronger, and he could come to Oklahoma at any time. My challenge is he's up in Florida with the only family he's ever known. He doesn't know my daughter. He doesn't know, and these are some of those ethical decisions in life that you get to make when substance abuse is in your life. I look at him and I say he's lost his mom at 2. He lost his dad at 6. The only mom he does know is the woman he's living with now, who is really not his mom. But she's the one that's cared for him. Do we have a right to take him away from her? Do we have that right? We do because he's blood, but is that the best decision for him? Now my daughter, the one in prison, says, yes, that is the best decision. That's my son. I want my son. I want you guys to get my son. But I'm like, but cognitively, during the accident, his neck, it just was snapped, and it had set at a weird angle for a couple days because they were building a brace for his head and his neck so that they could go in and do the surgery. And during that time, blood clots had built up. So when they straightened and he was cognitively okay, he knew who you were, he could talk, he was, he's on a ventilator, he can't breathe on his own. When I say he could talk, he could blink his eyes and answer questions. When they went in to do the surgery and straightened his neck up, the blood clots caused him to have a stroke. And so at the time, he could blink his eye after the surgery. He could tell you if this was Mickey Mouse or if this was SpongeBob by blinking his eyes, but cognitively he had lost some of his functioning. The hospital at that time took us all in the room and said, we really think you need to end his life. And all of us were like, this was like a week after his accident, and all of us was like, well, can you tell us whether he's going to recover? How much of his functioning will he recover? And they said, well, he's young, he could just, recover. They said he will never walk on his own, but we don't know how far he's recovering. Well, you can't tell, I guess you can tell because it was told, that as far as I was concerned, unless you told me that this was how he was going to be for the rest of his life, and when you talked to him, if I went to talk to him and he was not there, I could see taking him off life support. But he was there, he was functioning. So as a family, we had decided that we would, spare his life and see where he came. We got on the airplane. Everything was really good between the families. Come and visit him whenever you want. And the minute we got on the airplane, the opportunity was slammed down on us, and they won't even tell us how he's functioning at this moment. So those things are really tragedies within themselves, but it all stems from, what if she had never taken a drug? Probably, you can't, we're going to what if this, you're not supposed to what if it, but let's just what if this. Probably she wouldn't have had Marcus because she wouldn't have been on drugs. So we could go back to that. But whose life would be different? Her life would be different. Her son's life would be different. Our life would be different. And when you have somebody that has an addiction that you're dealing with in your life, I'm not in control. I'm only in control of how I feel, how I act, but I'm not in control of these running into the wall moments that happen when you're dealing with somebody in addiction. I could not control the fact that she had gotten arrested and sent to prison. I can't control the fact that her son has been in an accident. But let's think about her. And during the time of his accident, the doctors called her every day and let her make decisions, because basically with the dad passed, she had now every right medically with him. And she was trying to make a decision about a young man's little life that she hadn't seen since he was 2 years old. She couldn't even, in her mind, fathom what he looked like, let alone what she needed to do with him, or make the decisions she made for him. Every decision that she had made since she went to prison was a decision that she made so she could be a mom when she got out. She recognized that fact. That's why she was going to school. That's why she was staying out of trouble. That's why she kept herself, she went to school, she went to church, she was thriving. After the accident, what did she have to live for? She didn't know if her son was even going to be there. So for about 6 months, she went nuts in there. She actually got sent to prison in prison, and I didn't know you could do that. I mean, little.
Solitary.
Yeah. Well, they actually have a jail. She didn't make it solitary. They put her in jail in prison because she had actually assaulted someone else. You can't show weakness. She was crying. The woman started teasing her, and she assaulted her. Not something you can do on the outside, you know. You have to deal with this, and I can laugh now, but it sure wasn't. So she spent 3 months in what they call the shoe. I've only heard that on movies, but you know, I got to learn what the shoe was. She spent 3 months in the shoe because of her assault. And so I haven't actually gotten to see her, because once you get out, you have to have good behavior before your family can come in, and you earn your good behavior every 30 days. You get like half a point every 30 days, and you have to have so many points before your family gets to see you. So I haven't actually got to see her in about 7 months. We talk on the phone. And so she's finally made it to the point where she can have visitation again. So my daughter and I are going to see her in the weekend at Halloween. So I guess that's this weekend, isn't it? Yeah. So substance abuse is all about choices, and she knows that. To tell you the positive thing that's going on is she's realized that as a paralegal assistant, she can work in law offices, and she's a very brilliant person. And we also have a family member who is a lawyer, and he has said, you get your degree, you clean up yourself, quit, stop fighting, because she's got a lot of anger. She recognized the fact that she couldn't deal with her anger, her emotions about her son, so she went and got put on medication, which I've been trying to get her to do, And so finally she got put on medication to sort of, because she can't do anything about any of this that has to do with Marcus. She's helpless. She feels very helpless. So got focused back on school, and we were scheduled to go to her graduation last month, and Governor Fallon decided she wanted to visit the prison that day, so they canceled the graduation, which was very, you're like, oh, but we get to go. They've rescheduled it for next month, so we get to do that. She's still at an 18-year-old reasoning at times, because she's not in a place where she can thrive normally. Institutionalized might be another word that you guys hear as you go through your education. Institutionalized basically means to adapt to your environment in a way that you can function. I mean, if I'm saying that wrong, please let me know. But she has become...
You're an expert, I think.
And not that I want to be an expert.
No, but you are.
Do you think any mother should ever have to know all this? Basically, which means she has learned what she has to do to make it, okay? And what she has to do is pretend that she's not scared, pretend that she is tough, pretend that nothing bothers her. And how do you do that when your son is laying in a hospital in another, this happened in Florida, in another state, and you cannot get to him, you cannot see him. We tried to get them to let us Skype with her so she could at least talk to him and see him. Prison officials wouldn't let us do that. Very frustrating. She turns it around on herself and begins to say, if I wasn't here, my son would be alive. If I wasn't here, but she can't do that thinking either. That might help her grow and motivate her if she can turn it around for the positive, but she wasn't doing that very well. So what our family has learned is that just substance abuse is just a word, and that substance abuse is more than a word, because it can wrap yourself around somebody's life so much so that one decision, that one night to sit in a car during a robbery has resulted in many of us going through things that we should never, ever, ever have to go through. And but the positive thing of it is her She was on such a destructive pattern that I truly believe that prison was the only way that her life would have been spared. She was, at the very end, as a mother, I can tell you, she didn't care about herself. She didn't care whether she lived, whether she died. She was cutting on herself daily. She would get in these high, because she was using meth, she was using everything she can get her hands on. She was in these stupors where I'm a bad mom, I might as well just cut on myself, so she was cutting on herself. She was putting herself in risky behaviors, going places that she shouldn't be going. And I truly believe that had she not went to prison, she would be dead today. We both truly believe that, because she was ready to end it. And I really, because during that time, I'm a praying mom, so I'm praying for her, right? And I can talk like this here, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We'll let you.
I normally don't go this way into schools, but as a praying mom, you pray. You see your child in these dangers, and you see your child doing things that you just know is not good, and so you begin to pray and you begin to cry out for God, please save her, deliver her from addiction. And in my mind, that went one way. In my mind, it was like she'd be delivered from addiction, she would go back to school, be happy, get rid of Jesse, and but that didn't happen that way. Because I as a mom, I'm just thinking, I just need it that way. But she'll tell you herself, it took this to wake her up. And you hear a lot of people talk about that when they're doing their testimonies. And you have to realize, I don't think it would have taken that for me. And so I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Matter of fact, there's been times I was really mad at God, because I'm like, I can't believe, okay, I'm human, so this is what I told God. I can't believe you put me through all that. I can't believe me as a mom, here I believe in you, I believe that you need to,